If you truly want to be great at guitar, you really shouldn't practice. That's a pretty confusing statement I read, actually said by a pretty famous guitar player. I don't want to state the name because maybe I'm taking this out of context, but it honestly did get me thinking. Because the way this was meant is actually quite interesting. From what I understand at least, this mostly addresses players that only work on exercises in their practice routines. As you might know, I'm a big fan of daily practice routines and I also work on exercises quite a lot. But of course, the truth is, if you only work on exercises and completely ignore theory or any kind of creative aspects in your routine, you might just get better at playing those exercises, but you're not really becoming a better and more educated guitar player through that. So once again, I really think daily exercises are quite important, especially if you're working on fixing some bad habits with your guitar playing and your technique. But with this video, I want to show you something a bit more creative that you can work on. I want to show you a couple of really cool licks and concepts that you can steal, and I want you to learn them, but I also want you to understand how I came up with these licks. That's what I will explain to you in this video, so that you can write your own really awesome sounding creative licks after watching this video until the end. Because that's not only super fun, working on practical and creative topics like that in your practice routine will also make you a better guitar player overall, especially once you have to write or improvise your next guitar solo. So let's get started with the first lick right away. So that's a quick and kind of melodic arpeggio line, but as I'm sure you heard, there's a lot of dissonance involved right here. But it's not that kind of shocking dissonance that's just supposed to freak you out and is often used to cause a lot of tension and suspense, those minor seconds. It's actually some melodically nice sounding dissonance, and I will explain to you how that works in just a second. Here it is a bit slower. So if you know your theory a little bit, or your arpeggio shapes, you might have seen that this idea is based around the key of E minor, or at least an E minor arpeggio. But instead of playing the arpeggio like you do most of the time, root, minor third, perfect fifth, I'm swapping the very common minor third for a major second in the scale. So basically just the second note in the E minor scale, F sharp. So instead of E, G, B, I'm playing E, F sharp, B, and since I have to stretch a little bit with this shape, I'm using my middle finger. And I'm rolling it a little bit. You might be used to doing that by now from all the sweep picking workouts that I posted in the last couple of weeks. So I'm playing E, I'm hammering on, rolling the finger a little bit to play B on the D string. And then aside from the inclusion of the major second in the arpeggio, one of my favorite parts is this big hammer on right here, from the minor 7th D to the major second or 9th F sharp once again. I really like it when there's some distance between the notes in my arpeggio. So instead of just hammering on from D to E, I make sure to hammer on to F sharp instead. That alone sounds really nice to me, and it might be a phrase that I would actually use. So if you have a favorite sound or interval like that, make sure to include it in multiple octaves. That really helps with bringing out that specific sound. And then after that, here's my next trick. Here's where the awesome dissonance happens. So I'm playing F sharp, the major second or 9th with my pinky finger, but then I'm finally playing the minor third G on top of that, on the 8th fret, on the B string with my index finger. And as you might know, the major second and the minor third are just one semitone or one fret apart. So when you play those two notes and they are overlapping, you get that super dissonant minor second interval. But since those are two notes and two actually very melodic notes in the context of E minor, it actually works nicely in the context of the full arpeggio or song or lick. By the way, my friend, if you're still not seeing the notes all across the neck and you're not quite sure how to even start writing a guitar solo or a lick in a certain key or with a different sound or scale, chances are you're a bit frustrated when it comes to anything that concerns theory or creativity on the instrument, and that can really cripple your progress and also your sound, because if you're playing the same old boring licks all the time, nobody will want to listen to your guitar playing. So to help you out as much as I can, I created simple, easy step-by-step music theory courses courses that are aimed especially at self-taught guitar players, because I also started as a self-taught player and I know how frustrating it is. These courses come with my 0% BS policy, so you will not learn any overly complicated music theory topics that you will never actually need in a practical context. You will only learn the most helpful basics that you will need on your journey that will instantly unlock your fretboard, so you will start seeing the notes that you're playing. You will actually understand which scales to use over which chords. All you have to do to get started is click the link down below, patreon.com/bernd. That's my online guitar academy. Get access to my premium guitar courses right away, and let's finally take your guitar playing to a world-class level in this brand new year. Start making some real progress in 2025. I'm waiting for you inside my online guitar academy, but for now, let's continue with the video. So in this case, it's not dissonance just for shock value. This actually works in a melodic way. And then I'm sliding up from G on the 8th fret on the B string all the way up to B. And lastly, I want to emphasize the 9th once again. And I'm playing E on top of B. And then I'm hammering on to F sharp on the 14th fret on the E string. Once again, the major second or 9th in this context. A very cool and melodic modern arpeggio lick. I'd love to see your variations of that one in the VIP Facebook group. Up next, here's something that's based a bit more on guitar technique than theory. This is something you've heard in my recent guitar solos on the song Words, for example. I also did something like this in the solo for Elasticity, the song I recorded with the rubber band strings. And it's about using very basic 3-string arpeggio shapes, but instead of going with the classic sweep picking approach of just playing the shapes up and down, I'm actually going for alternate picking on top before I play those descending notes, and I get a cool sounding pattern like this that sounds way harder than it actually is. So kind of a cool, more modern twist for those old school arpeggios. Here's what I'm doing a little bit slower. It's essentially a combination of alternate picking and then just sweep picking in one direction up like this. And in order to play this quite fast, you might see that I'm flicking my wrist a little bit or turning it. The main challenge with this lick is landing back on the high E string for the alternate picking after descending in the arpeggio with those sweeping upstrokes. So I want to make sure that my pick is moving away from the strings. So like this, over exaggerated of course, I want to move away from in between the strings so that the angle is great for landing that next downstroke on the high E string. So that's where that wrist movement comes from that you sometimes see when I'm playing phrases like this. So when you start working on this pattern, just pick one shape and play that over and over again. And really focus on nailing that transition from the upstroke sweeps back to the high E string. That's pretty much the only challenge with speeding that one up. And as soon as you have unlocked this skill, you can apply this pattern to pretty much any 3-string arpeggio. Diminished ones, for example, which is what we will talk about next. So give it a try, hope you enjoy. And the last one I want to show you today is one that I've been working on for quite a while. When we're playing diminished arpeggios across the neck, we can connect them easily, as you might know. You just have to jump up or down 3 frets or a minor third. That's great, but it also makes metal players a bit lazy sometimes. And you hear phrasing like this a lot with diminished arpeggios. So playing the shape up and down and just moving it across the neck like this. It's a lot of fun, but of course it gets boring and repetitive if that's the only thing that you're doing with diminished arpeggios. So I'd like to remind you of this awesome lick when it comes to diminished shapes. That's really interesting rhythmically, and it only involves upstrokes, which is kind of unique. So far so good, but then you return to the high E string with some more upstroke sweeps and with a pull-off at the end, so the entire pattern is. You can also try different picking patterns for this one, but for me it's really the easiest way of playing it by going for upstrokes all the way. And then of course you can just connect it to other diminished shapes that are a minor third above the original shape or below the original shape. The timing is the most difficult thing here for me because it's quite unusual to only play with upstrokes. But the struggle of learning this is absolutely worth it because it's an amazing pattern, because you can use this awesome pattern for all kinds of other shapes that are based on this 2-note, 1-note per string, 2-note per string principle. So it's a really useful one for you in case you're tired of always playing arpeggios down, up like that. Alright my friends, I made a guitar profile and also PDF tabs for all of those licks. Please make sure to give them a try. I think they will really expand your personal lick library, but you will get the most out of these concepts if you try to make something unique with them. Try to apply the theory concept from the first lick to build your own arpeggio, or the picking concepts from lick number 2 or 3. I'm looking forward to seeing your creative examples in the VIP Facebook group. Until then, have an awesome day. Greetings from Vienna and bye bye.